And so Partho, why don't we kick it off with you, just sort of talking about your role and maybe some of the things, like just start to dive in a little bit, some of the things you're focused on today and sort of working on over there.
Sounds good. Yeah. Hey folks, I'm Partho. I'm the Senior Director of Product Growth at Hootsuite, which is a funny title. I know product growth roles are coming up really hot right now. And I'd love to talk about kind of what I'm doing, but I actually got my start at kind of a PLG org a long time ago. I worked at a company called Unbounce. Unbounce is the category leader of landing page builders. And I think back then, PLG wasn't really a coined term by OpenView yet. No one knew what the heck that thing was. And but we didn't have a sales team for the first like 9 years of the business. It was all through the product, through our community, through our blog. And when we did bring a sales team in, which was my last year at that company, it was purely inbound. I'm sure things have changed for them now, and I'm not saying that we should be anti-sales, but I'm now at Hootsuite, kind of really transforming the org from being extremely sales-led, which you would not think for the brand that Hootsuite has, that it is a very sales-led organization, but we are. Organically through the pandemic, our customer base shifted a little bit. And, I was helping consult them on a couple of experiments on their onboarding activation, and one of them, caught fire and ended up kind of exploding at about 30%, 40% year-over-year growth after the company had gone through kind of 10, 15% year-over-year growth for years before that. This year our goal is to kind of hit 30% by having a mix, and we're really leaning on focusing on both the kind of self-serve product-led growth expansion into our sales-led motions and having a sales-enabled motion. And our whole sales team has really changed their entire organization to work around our PLG kind of structure and motion now. And now the entire org, we've got 1,200-1,300 people all understanding that, we're changing how we work. We're a PLG shop. And that means change for myself in my role, if you're a CSM, or if you're sales folk, or if you're marketing. So it's pretty exciting stuff.
Awesome. Why don't we kick it off there then? Let's talk about just the org setup today, sort of what that looks like, and maybe some of the different roles that you have.
Yeah, so we've got a pretty large sales team. From being a pretty sales-led organization, about 300-400 people are on the sales side. CS rolls up into our sales org as well. And so CS, for the most part, has been pretty enterprise focused. We've kind of separated success and support through that. That's been a big change, to be very delightful and ensure that everyone's having success. We've ensured that, customer success and support is available to all of our customers. I sit in the product growth department, which houses 5 different teams. My teams include monetization, activation, which includes onboarding, engagement, which really focuses on long-term adoption of our products. And then we've also got 2 other teams that are really experimental, all kind of under the product growth department. And I roll up to our CPO in our product department. What is unique is we are basically directly in the middle of product and growth marketing. I kind of sit right between them. There was a joke last year that I basically had two bosses at all times, which was awkward in many moments. But I think now officially we all kind of understand how that structure works. And so acquisition is another piece that kind of falls into the wheelhouse, which includes the website and pricing pages.
Cool. And I know a lot of you had a couple of you had sent some emails ahead of time before this call. And I'm sure there's sort of like some reasoning on why each of you are all here. So was there something, I want to open up the floor early on the call for people to ask questions around what you're thinking about, what you think Partho might be able to help you with, or just sort of maybe how Hootsuite solved a problem that you're currently thinking about today.
Well, I hope we've solved all the problems. It'd be lovely if we solved all the problems, I'm sure.
Yeah, right. Everyone's a work in progress. I love death by silence. Someone's got some questions on this call. Let's hear them.
Partho, you mentioned Hootsuite was 10% growth year over year until an experiment popped. Can you elaborate on that experiment, and what was the growth number again that you achieved through that experiment?
Yeah, so in prior to 2020, the specifics are, I wouldn't say 10%, but it was low. Let's just call it very, but Hootsuite at that time was about 10 years in as a product. We are in the they were, let's call it, in the about 200 to 500 million ARR range. So 10%, just take that with that notion, understanding of what that was. But yeah, the experiments that we were running, a couple of them was really testing an SMB market and really focusing instead of just mid-market and enterprise customers. There's a large focus on Fortune 1000 customers. And it was like, if you're looking at expansion growth, go back to the roots of being the best in social. And during the pandemic, we had some hypotheses of a lot of mom and pop shops and solopreneurs and even places like coffee shops requiring to sell coffee beans during the pandemic instead of in the cafe experience, that they could use Hootsuite. And so those were really, the experiments were really around testing different segments and markets. But what we had done was really improve the onboarding flow. I would say that the onboarding and activation flow of Hootsuite in 2019, 2020 was really quite broken. It was really, you needed to kind of have some level of support, which was often an upsell to really get started appropriately. We just kind of fixed those gaps. One of them was a pretty large experiment around fixing that activation funnel. And then you just had a lot more customers get to that aha moment, that light bulb moment, a lot quicker. And so, now today at Hootsuite, we know exactly, we use the Reforge framework. So we know our setup moment, our aha moment, and our habit moment, and we track those changes all the time. They have changed 3 times as I've been at Hootsuite. So that's something we always look at.
Or what was the framework's name?
It's Reforge. So Reforge is kind of a product and growth framework or course. There's tons of great leaders that teach at Reforge. I can't say enough good things about them.
Thank you.
So I think one question I had was, you did say that customer success org rolls up to sales. So are they the one who are really looking into the conversion from free to the paid plan, or was it in sales?
No, that's product. And marketing. Yeah. So that free to paid. So we've got Hootsuite has 3 different levers. We've tested all of them, and they always need to be tested. So what I say today could be completely wrong next year. But right now we've got a free plan and a free product. We've got a paid trial, so a free trial for one of our paid plans, and then we've got a sales motion where there's no kind of trial period whatsoever. So our free to paid, our monetization team that rolls up to me is accountable for that. I also have a monetization team that focuses on expansion, improving ARPA, and so they also look at that, which is more going from our professional plan to our teams plan, or professional plan to our business plan, which are our self-serve plans. The new thing for 2022, after a lot of these sales org changes, is now we also have kind of PQLs, what I call product upsell qualified leads, not to throw a new kind of term in the mix, like we call them PQLs, which is basically sourcing leads in our self-serve and free plans to go up directly to a sales-led motion. The use case of that is Hootsuite has really got a vast use case for a lot of different companies. And we have a lot of at Intuit.coms, at Slack.coms, at, a lot of enterprise orgs actually using us. And that's just because we have social media managers that just want to improve their day-to-day, and they have no problem paying for our self-serve product. So then that's a great way of getting, leads going through to our sales team saying, do you want to see if the rest of that company wants to use Hootsuite?
Yeah, thanks.
What goes into those product upsell qualified leads? What are you looking at?
Yeah, it's so we've got, it's a data model that we started working on about a year ago, I would say. It's needed to go through a lot of refinement, a lot of changes, but the first thing I'll call out, there's a lot of tech debt that might be very specific to Hootsuite, but having been in SaaS for about over a decade now, it seems to be a very common thing. There's a lot of billing tech debt. There's a lot of tech debt with plans and entitlements and how that all works. And so for us, one of the challenges that we had was we separate our procurement flows. So we've got our subscription, management platform or billing platform, but sales-led, deals that were often 6-7 digits, they wouldn't go through that platform. They would use something different, something like NetSuite or something like that. And so a lot of data from our enterprise side were completely missing. So a large part of it was consolidating that data, aggregating it, being able to then use it for this model. And the model really looks at, usage behaviors. It uses mixes of what I would call a customer success health score, along with kind of key product drivers to then really quickly call out, during the free plan phase or even the trial phase that, hey, instead of, this, let's call it $1,200 a year product or a $6,000 plan on the mid-size mark, they're probably ready for a bigger thing. They're more sophisticated. It's really just trying to predict that behavior. That's the key piece that we've changed. The first version of it was just looking at customers that are ready for an upsell anyways, which, I think should be something any expansion team is looking at.
See a question from Devin. Does that still apply in here?
Yeah.
No, I think, go ahead.
I love it. I just saw it. I just opened up the chat. Please do ask the question. I think it's worth diving into.
Yeah, I'm just curious how those upgrade qualified leads are different from a PQL that you might expect more typically.
Yeah, so this was a conversation that I had with some different leaders at different orgs. One of the ones that really sparked this interest was Vimeo. Vimeo is the B2B kind of video sharing tool for those that don't know it. They have a very large split as well in terms of enterprise and self-serve. They call it out, and it seemed very similar to like how Hootsuite was running when I first joined. There's a very strong distinction between self-serve and enterprise. And when we first started, PQLs was really looking at our free product and our trial product and calling out PQLs from there. So we removed the notion of kind of MQLs and SQLs from our vocabulary, and really just trying to find people that use the product to hit that aha moment that then should convert. The difference with PQLs is really our separation of self-serve and talking about PQLs and self-serve versus those that are ready for our kind of mid-market enterprise sales-led motions. So maybe that's more of an internal, conversation, but it just seemed like we weren't the only ones in that model. I would say the separation was really, if you're more of a startup and you maybe have one segment that you've really been focused on versus a mid-sized tech company where you've probably tested all the different segments and maybe have a mix of a lot of them, that might be where it's more useful.
I have a follow-up question. So you said that you kind of removed the language of MQLs from your internal chatter. So does your marketing team just focus on driving PQLs, or what does that look like for your team?
Yeah, they do. The latest change that we've had is actually, this will sound icky, it actually hasn't been, the acquisition team, that's driving most of our paid acquisition, and also owned our website, kind of has moved over, and so that's a part of that change. And so and they're very much focused on driving PQLs. I'm not in all of the marketing meetings, but from what I've seen and heard, we have kind of changed that terminology to kind of be more PQL based, and we're just not focusing that much on finding just direct leads for our sales team anymore. Mostly because we are trying to be a true SaaS platform that our product management department's putting the best product they can out there. And I've got a whole other talk track on why that's difficult. But, I think what Hootsuite had done for about 5 years prior to the pandemic was really focus on custom features for big customers. And probably 60-70% of the roadmap was dedicated to a one-off custom feature here and there. And we eroded from what Hootsuite was great. Hootsuite built this category. We were the first in the market. Most people know the brand. It's pretty iconic, I think, at this point. But I think at some point they kind of lost that luster of like putting the best foot forward and really owning the social space. I think I'm happy to say that we're probably back to that now. And I think that's really been shown on the growth that we've had as well.
I see a few questions. Let's see, Tim, Brannon, Islin.
Are you calling on me, Breezy?
Yeah, go for it, Tim.
All right. Hey, Partho, how's it going? Thanks for
Yeah, how are
doing
you?
this. So, yeah, I mean, I think we obviously talk about this a lot with a bunch of different companies, but I'm curious to hear your take at Hootsuite on sort of that free to paid conversion piece and like the tactics there, and what span, like I guess maybe to fine tune the question a bit. Where do you make decisions on like optimizing maybe on the product or marketing side versus like the sales side, and how are you thinking about tactics there?
Yeah, so I would say the first thing was because our product had both a free product and the trial. Like a lot of other companies obviously out there that skip the trial phase completely because they just have that free product and the freemium model. That a lot of our customers kind of self-select automatically going to that. We have some nudges that we've tested a lot. We use Pendo guides, which is kind of like, there's app queues, WalkMe, basically a digital adoption platform to easily test and build out, different nudges, guides, things like that. There's a lot of products in that field now. Any of them are, I think, really great. I'm pretty agnostic to which one you select, but having something where you can easily put something up and not have to rely on development resources, and then even A/B test them. So we connect our Pendo guides to Optimizely and really experiment what nudges we have. So one of the nudges we tested was just pushing free users right away into, do you actually want to try one of our trials out? And here's why. And we changed some of our pricing and packaging to make a lot of that sense. So we had a really large free entitlement change at the start of 2021. That drove a huge amount of expansion from free to professional. And now today, it also converts really quickly of customers that probably recognize that, I'm not going to get the value I need from free, and move them up to professional. Now, this is kind of a question mark for every person here to ask themselves. That's not always the best model. Like maybe you don't need that trial phase. Maybe you just go from a free product to a paid plan. For us, because we have that, and we had a lot of negotiations and experiments to see if we should remove one of them. It also meant that we had to, clamp down on our free product a little bit, that it's not as valuable as maybe there's a lot of internal heated debate of like, why do we even have this free product? It's not even that useful. Clearly, some people and a lot of users do find it somewhat useful because we have a lot of free users on it. We're about 1 million active users on the free product. But that's a lot of heated internal debate, I would say. And so as much as possible, we're still trying to push people in the first 14-day period to our trials instead. And Hootsuite, because we're in social, our activation moment is actually the first 30-minute duration of using our product. Now I say 30-minute duration, that typically actually takes a user up to 7 days because our users aren't just spending 30 minutes directly in the product right away. And then other tactics, of course, typical things that activation teams will do is obviously improving the onboarding, trying to get people to set up really quickly. Our challenge is that, there are some social networks, I won't name them by names, really hard to get connected from an API perspective. And it's really cumbersome for a user to go through. It's very technical versus something like, some of the other social networks we have where we have like a 99% connect rate, which is, they made it so easy. So that's our challenge, I'd say, internally. Happy to dive into more examples because I know it's pretty high level, but like there's a lot, I think, that we got 4 or 5 teams that kind of focus on that piece there, Tim.
That was super helpful. I think the one question I have, I think maybe other people might have here as well, just piggybacking on that quickly, is like and you talked a little bit about this in like the different PQL kind of approaches you guys take, but when do you decide to like, I guess, insert the sales, team in that, and how do you like kind of, just how do you think through that part of the process? And it might be just via the PQL approach you mentioned before, but curious, like, and then how do you look at that like in concert with the other things you're doing? Are you like looking at it, holistic, or trying to, or, and seeing like what's working or not, like the A/B testing there? Interested to hear, your thoughts there.
Yeah, so I mean, I think I'll probably rely on some experience from my last company that I was at, because the transparent answer on that is we're just starting to figure some of that stuff out. Like we've rolled out a few things the last 6 months. Most of them didn't work internally, mostly all internal problems. The latest one that we have is starting to work, which is really focusing on just our professional users and Teams users. Those are plan names, and then finding the right fit customers to move upstream and then serving that. The other part is, we've had a large split of self-serve versus enterprise that we've almost shipped our org, as in like our customers hear these terms, which they should never hear these terms, right? And so we've tried to make sure that now basically we remove that internally, and that we should be putting a lot more effort and emphasis on our activation of sales-led motions, not have to rely on onboarding specialists, not have to rely on all those kind of human interventions. And that has started to change the fold. So really, from a product point of view, we've needed to put a little bit more resourcing on that side, instead of just saying, no, they got it over there. Because we do all that work on self-serve. The biggest thing that was an aha moment for the whole organization, when we looked at our setup moment, we looked at enterprise and self-serve setup. Turns out enterprise, unbeknownst to what most folks thought, I won't get into specifics, it's very business oriented, but the thing that people thought for like 7 years was the reason that people use the enterprise product was completely debunked. And it turns out that they're really just self-serve users on steroids. For us, that simply meant that, instead of managing 3 to 5 social profiles, you're probably managing 50 social profiles. Things like admin rights and users and things like that actually wasn't really the big thing. Now, just a quick side note, because I think there's a really fun story to tell there. I was at a company named Banana Tag, funny name. Basically, Banana Tag is a B2B internal communication platform. And, we found a niche in internal communicators that really no one was solving their problems or even looking at these folks. And then during the pandemic, we hit over triple-digit growth and did it again. We realized there was something huge there. But we really, we were very much focused on Fortune 1000 customers. And so we were very sales-led. And for that pandemic moment, we had introduced collaborative tools, and we realized through some different experiments, again, we used app queues in this case. We had an experiment where we let other teams, use Banana Tag. Would you like to use the internal comms tool, which is really a newsletter builder that was originally email based, but then we started connecting to Slack, Workplace, Workday, MS Teams, and all of a sudden we had marketers, we had product marketers, we had product managers, CEOs wanting to use it because it was just such a great tool. And we just kind of went viral. We exploded in those companies. We became, instead of just an internal comms tool, it was a company-wide tool that was used. And it just goes to show. So the viral factor we had was really, we allowed and created a Chrome extension that would showcase our entire product for free, which is a vulnerable thing to do, obviously, but you could try the product. And I've tested that in a lot of companies. Unbounce, you go to unbounce.com today, you can go /demo. You will see the key part of Unbounce without even needing to enter a lead. Same thing at Banana Tag, although Banana Tag's now been acquired. We got acquired at the start of 2021 because of that growth that we had. And what was funny about it was we got acquired for our PLG motion by a company that was selling 7-digit deals, and they had like 100 of the Fortune 1000. We had 600 to 700. They're like, yeah, we'll buy you, and now you serve us those leads to hopefully, convert on our bigger size deals. So it just goes to show that PLG can work at any type of company. It doesn't have to just be SMB and whatnot.
Awesome. Well, I know we have 3 minutes left, and usually we go over. So this time I'll try to keep us tighter on the schedule, because I feel like we just did a cool little mic drop there at the end of that last comment, Partho. I think that was a really good piece to end it on. So we can connect over Slack Connect or email, or you can find Partho on LinkedIn. I just volunteered you for that one. But otherwise, thanks everybody. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks, and appreciate all the insights, Partho.
Thanks. Yeah, no problem. Happy to connect on with folks on LinkedIn. I'll leave my details in the chat, I guess.
Okay,
Or
perfect.
share it out. That's great. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, that sounds great. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.